LiveALive started out as more of a task for me to finish before the release of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, but ended up being one of my most memorable JRPG experiences of 2022. With its characters, themes, and unique approach to how a traditional JRPG played in the early 90s, made me understand why this game never made its way to the West. This game was way before its time, and now that the JRPG genre has become more mainstream, now was the perfect time for Square Enix to bring over this wonderful gem to the West, and this time it receives a new coat of paint, the 2D HD style approach that Square Enix had first announced with Octopath Traveler, followed by Triangle Strategy, and it seems like the developers have found a working formula in reviving retro style JRPGs of the past. What's unique about LiveALive is the fact is that the game doesn't center around one main protagonist, but 7 of them that spans across different eras within this world's timeline. Each timeline has its own story and individual gameplay tailored to them and incorporated into the game's combat system. This is definitely a bold approach back in 1994 when the original game had released in Japan. A lot of experimentation was put into creating this game and later inspired games like Saga Frontier and Wild Arms with its multi-protagonist storytelling. Now, the 7 different eras you choose from are the prehistoric era, where you take control of a young caveman and his primal friend who stumbles upon a beautiful cave woman who has ran away from another cave tribe that wants to sacrifice her to their deity. What's unique about this era is that there's no actual dialogue in this because language was yet to be invented. So, story is told through character emojis or emotes and sound effects, and what's funny about this is the fact is that they were successfully able to keep me invested without any inch of dialogue at all. Next is the Wild West era, which focused on a cowboy named Sundown. Now, he has a bounty on his head and he stumbled upon a town that's being bullied by a gang of outlaws, and now it's up for you to help the sheriff and his people. It reminds me a lot of the Clint Eastwood films. This era focuses more on setting up traps in preparation for the bandits' arrival. It also has an interesting conclusion too. Then you have Imperial China. Now, I will say this, Imperial China is ranked number 1 for me when it comes to story. You take control of an old kung fu master who is seeking 3 young disciples to pass down his martial arts before he dies. Now, I won't spoil the rest of the story, but I will say this is one of the most heartfelt experiences of the 7 eras. The gameplay revolves more so around you leveling up and training your disciples to the very end of the chapter. You definitely need to experience this one. And of course, Edo Japan's era allows you to take control of a shinobi who tags in to save a prisoner from an opposing lord, and his life will determine the future of Japan. This is more of a stealth-based story where combat is not necessarily important, but you know me, I went around slaying every guard as possible, so there was no stealth involved. And I wanted to do that because I really wanted to level up this character, and leveling up your character will definitely pay off by the time you reach the end of the game in general. And then of course, next you have the present era, where you take control of young fighters whose goal is to become the best fighter in the world by learning the various techniques from different fighters. Now, this era is the shortest of them all. It was pretty much about probably like 30 minutes to an hour, and not much story was involved with this one, but what I like about it is the gameplay style is treated like a fighting game. Your goal is to let the opponent hit you with its best attacks so you can learn from it. So I would say you're more like a blue mage from Final Fantasy when it comes to learning abilities through getting attacked by your enemies. And then now you have the near future era. Now, I would say this is the longest era of them all. You're a young man named Akira who has the power of psychonesis. His father was a police officer who died long ago when fighting against a bike gang in Japan. Him and sister grew up in an orphanage, living together, and he's been taking care of her since. And Akira will later discover a conspiracy that will lead to some interesting set pieces, which reminded me of why this game was way before its time. And what's interesting about his gameplay as well, you can walk around to speak with different NPCs and you can actually read their mind to get extra details. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And then we have the distant future, which is my second favorite era of the 7 protagonist stories. What is unique about this one is that you take control of a droid that was programmed to help service a civilian cargo ship back to Earth. Now, there's no combat in this story. It's strictly story and mystery as you wake up the other crew members from their cryosleep. Now, I will say this. Because of how story focused this is, I won't dwell too much into this, but I will say this: it definitely took some influence from Aliens, and it also reminds me of the movie Event Horizon. All I can say is play this era last, because you will appreciate the experience even more. And finally, after completing all 7 eras, you unlock the Middle Age era, where you play as the actual protagonist, which is supposed to be you, because this protagonist and this gameplay approach is more of your traditional JRPG, where you have the silent protagonist, and this one feels more of your traditional JRPG, where you have the different classes, you know, like your warrior, your mage, and everything. And this is not really a spoiler, because this character is actually on the front box art of the game, and Nintendo also has a short trailer of this era, but I won't spoil this era as far as the other details are concerned, because this era is the one that brings everything together and why the other eras are important to begin with. So I'll leave it at that. As far as the combat, it's a cross between turn-based and tactics, where movement and positioning matters most. You move across a grid where certain attacks are able to connect with your enemies based on their type. Now, this game can get really tough if you just go in aggressive, but once you understand how the combat works, you can easily break the game. And that's the fun part about it. You really have to gauge your opponents, and as you move on the grid, your enemies move as well with their ATB bar. So it's pretty much almost like a action turn based at the same time, where there's a constant movement going on and the enemy is attacking while you're still trying to make your decisions in a way. So movement is very, very important. So remember that. So there's not really much leveling going on within each chapter, because the amount of time that you spend in each chapter, and by the time I reached the end of the game, it ran me about 30 hours long, depending on how much of the extra dungeons and bosses you decide to take on. But it can definitely be beaten in 20 hours as the bare minimum, but you better be good at the combat itself to even pull that off. Now, the game also has 5 different endings, but in order to get the true ending, which I did, expect to grind for hours to achieve it, because there's a lot of grinding involved. But luckily, I did most of the grinding during each era, so I was able to breeze my way through the parts that was expected for major grinding. Now, as far as the music is concerned, the music is fantastic. Great music score from Yoko Shimomura. You may be familiar with her composing work from the Street Fighter II and Kingdom Hearts series. She scored the original in 1994 and returned for the remake on Nintendo Switch, and this is by far my favorite original soundtrack for any game for 2022, especially the boss fight theme. I just love it so much.
Come on, Master, let's do this! You cannot harm him!
The music is awesome. But overall, the visuals are stunning. Now, even though I have Octopath Traveler since the launch, I have yet to play it, and nor have I even played Triangle Strategy yet. It's still wrapped up in the plastic. So it's really my first time seeing the HD 2D graphic firsthand, and I would say it's gorgeous. Every pixel was handled with care, while giving us that nostalgia era art style that most young gamers today have missed out on. But overall, this is an amazing package. I love LiveALive. Is just an awesome game, and it's crazy how this game itself, a game that was created back in 1994 and has been updated and remade in 2022, this game has more heart than most games that I played this year and on current gen consoles, and it's crazy. Like, if you love JRPGs, I'm telling you right now, you definitely need to add this in your library. You cannot miss out on this game. Well crafted and way before its time. And as I play this game, I'm constantly thinking about, wow, in 1994 this game wouldn't have done well, simply because of the themes that it tackled and just the passion and the experimentation that they wanted to pull off with this game. And I really enjoyed every last bit of it. So if you're looking for a JRPG experience that you've never experienced before, I highly recommend this, and I will give this game a 9 out of 10. I love every last bit of this game. So that pretty much wraps up this review of a LiveALive remake for the Nintendo Switch. Definitely love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Have you played this game? What do you think about it? Have you played the original in 1994? What do you think about it then, comparing it to what they are remade now? Did you think the remake have given this some justice? Definitely want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. And I just can't believe that I was able to finish this game and also Scarlet Nexus before the launch of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 this Friday. So that wraps it up. If you liked the video, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and also, we'll say it again, hit that bell to be notified if you're more interested in hearing more of my thoughts on JRPGs in general. So that's it. This is MugenLord signing off. I'll see you game fiends later. Peace out.